Sometimes you just need a little something different to break you out of that slump. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about some books that I consider to be really good, palate cleansers, slump busters, whatever you want to call it. I figure it's a good time to do this because if you saw the review for the the last book review that I posted on Monday, having something to cleanse the palate and try something a little bit different, change of pace, was something that was really nice. Now, I do want to say for these books, I'm not saying anything like oh, they're just, it's like a little tiny thing here or there to do after. I'm just saying, like, for me, when I think of a palate cleanser, it's just something that's kind of a nice, whether it's a little simpler or it's just different, or some of these are just like completely different style than things that I normally read, but they're all books that I've found that just like I can jump in, and it just kind of gets me refreshed and ready to get back to more. So with no further ado, let's jump in and talk about some of them. So I noted in the thumbnail too, I've got lots of different kinds of books here. So the first one, which would fall under magical realism, I think, is The Ocean at the End of the Lane. I have here this absolutely beautiful illustrated hardcover edition, which is just super nice. There's kind of like some full page, some part page here. I loved this book. I know a lot of people know and have read this book. It's very short, and it's just, this one broke me out of one of my really big slumps a couple of years ago, and I just kind of fell in love with the book overall. But this is, it starts out as a man who is attending a funeral back in like a small town area where he used to live, and then he starts reminiscing about his past. And so you see then his past and like events that happened through the eyes of the child that he was. And you can kind of get a dual feeling of what might be really happening, but the magical kind of way that he's seeing it. It's kind of dark, and it's one of those things that I think would work for children, but also for adults, because there's just a ton here. But it's a nice short read that you can get through, and just for me, absolutely left me feeling energized afterward and ready to keep reading more after finishing it. Next up, jumping into sci-fi, and when I think of a book that just makes you just feel excited afterward, and it's just kind of a nice change of pace as well, immediately I have to go with Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Now, I mentioned this very recently in my video talking about audiobook narrators or audiobooks that I really loved, and I did audio for this, and I definitely recommend audio. Just such a great story. Like, the story itself was really great, the audio narration was really great, and it's just was such a nice one. I literally, when I first listened to this, I listened to it over a weekend and did a puzzle, and just like, I felt great afterwards. It was exactly what I needed. And this is a sci-fi kind of following a last-ditch effort to save humanity from a big like world-ending event that is coming, and somebody going off in order to do that. And I know this is going to be adapted into a movie, I think, too. I still haven't read or seen The Martian, but we'll get there. But yeah, so just a really, really great book. Fun, a lot of the different science stuff narrated by Ray Porter, and just a great book as well. So definitely one I would recommend. Also, switching up genres again, let's go into horror, which is something that I'm not super well read in. So if you're familiar with me, you probably know what's going to be happening here. But got to go with Nightmareland by Daniel Barnett. I have the first two books here, Nightfall and Lullaby. These are, as you can see, very short. The first 5 books are all pretty darn short, and then the 6th book is a bit longer. But like Nightfall itself is like under 150 pages. It is something you can absolutely read very quickly. You can get these too. I think they're still on Kindle Unlimited as well, so really easy to get. But it's just, there's very short, getting in, and for me it was just something so totally different. Nightmareland is an atmospheric horror, and it's, as you can probably tell from Nightfall, basically it just randomly it becomes night, the sun disappears, and it just is a night that does not end, and things start to go a little bit crazy in the world, and things kind of progress from there as we go. And then we follow a man who is trying to get across the country in all the turmoil to find his estranged daughter who had called him, some other people going on along the way, and just This series has made me want to try more horror, and I've still been a little hit or miss with it. But I'm interested in trying more. But it just sucked me in immediately. Now I know some people too. They took them a bit to get used to the writing style of it, or so it may or may not work as well too. But if you like horror and you read horror, literary horror, anything like that, definitely check this out. But even if you don't, it's like I said, it's so short. Give it a shot and see how you feel, especially if you just are feeling like trying something completely different as well. So going to some that are a little bit more in my wheelhouse that we'll talk about, which if you just need a break and you want something humorous, when I think of humorous and fantasy, of course I think of Discworld. Terry Pratchett. So two specific sub-series that I think work really well for this include the Guards. I have Guards, and Men-at-Arms here. Guards is very popularly put as like a really great starting point. It's still in the early books, but it's after the first few that are a little rougher for the most part. And then Men-at-Arms for me, I enjoyed even more than Guards. It was just like a more streamlined plot, still having a lot of fun. And then I personally also love the Witches books. So I've got Equal Rights and Weird Sisters here. Equal Rights, which I loved, but it is not quite the same. It is more so joking about like the different roles of men and women in magic use and that kind of thing. Is not like a full Witches novel. So if you really want the Witches experience, Weird Sisters is where that starts. And Weird Sisters was just absolutely hilarious and one I loved so much. So I know most people have probably heard of Discworld or are somewhat aware of it, but for me too, and I actually haven't done a Discworld book in a while, but when you just kind of want to do something light, fun, different, something that works, I think really, really well is, of course, Discworld. So have to have on a list such as this. Now going back over into something, and it's kind of a subgenre that I'm still not super experienced in, and I found is a little hit or miss for me, which is literary RPG, where I gotta mention Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. This is also something I consumed via audio, narrated by Jeff Hayes, and these audiobooks are probably my favorite actual audio I've listened to. There's different voices, there's some effects, and it's not like a whole cast or anything. It's one person, but there's extra effects and everything going on as well. And it's just, they're so entertaining. And it's a story that starts out, and I wasn't really sure how I felt about it, because it starts out a little bit ridiculous, and there's a lot of ridiculous stuff, but it toes the line between kind of like funny and silly and then very dark and serious. And it's one of those things where I found myself really, really drawn in and just having a blast with these. I've read the first 5 and I can't wait for the 6th one. So what started as, hey, I just want to try something else, do something fun, turned into a series that I ended up really, really enjoying. And there are 5, and they get longer as they go for the most part. So there's quite a lot to consume if you are interested in trying that out. I have not had a lot of other luck or experience, and not much luck with what I have tried with literary RPG. I don't think necessarily my thing. These definitely though are an exception, and it's just something that's very different, like I said, and is nice when you are looking for that kind of thing. And finally, something which gets a lot back more into fantasy, although kind of has its own unique parts as well. A book that just, reading it just made me feel nostalgic, even though I hadn't read it before, and that I just had such a blast going through. It has to be The Legend of Blackjack by A.R. Witham. This was just a wonderful book. It felt like something I would have read and absolutely loved when I was younger, except it's written in a bit more of a modern way and doesn't do the thing where it condescends to you, assuming you're young and don't understand. So it gives it that all ages kind of appeal. I think very much so. It is a somewhat simpler tale with it, but we have it's kind of a portal fantasy where Jack is taken to the fantasy world in order to try to save the day, and except he's a bit younger than they expected when they pulled him in, and so he has a lot of adventures along the way. A lot of classic fantasy things here that you can see some inspiration from, while also having a lot of new and fresh, and it's heartwarming, it's got action, it's got humor, and just an all-over just great time. One I definitely recommend checking out, especially if you're wanting to change it up. This one is a little over 400 pages, so it's not as short as some of these other ones are, but it is just, in general, every page. I just had so much fun reading this book and going through, and it's just definitely one of those books that just, you read it and you finish it and you just had that satisfaction from it. So really good time, definitely one I would recommend as well. in the kind of the palate cleanser or bust you out of a slump type of books. So those are my picks for some great ones. There are definitely more that I could mention as well, but these are ones that I specifically I read at times where like they really had that effect, and so that's kind of what I'm going with here. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you agree with it, kind of like with my thoughts, or like if it's really good for if you're trying something, or if you've got other books that you use as palate cleansers or have gotten you out of a slump, that kind of thing. Always interested to find out more of those kinds of books. So look forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like. Check the link in the description, as always, for the Wizardly Do It Discord. If you want to chat books, whether these books, other books, any books, really anything at all, it is a lot of fun, and we would love to have you. And, of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.